Hello and welcome to another development diary for Mongoose Traveller 2nd edition on Foundry Virtual Tabletop. I'm Samuel Penn, also known as Not a Snark on various forums such as Discord, Mastodon and Blue Sky. And I'm here to talk about what I've been doing with my Foundry implementation over the last couple of weeks. And the answer is pretty short, given workload and the general way too hot weather we're suffering in the UK at the moment. I haven't had a huge set of achievements to talk about. I have continued to work on getting vehicles working though. So I'm looking at implementing vehicles for the 2026 update, which means redoing the character sheet. I'm looking at implementing the design features for that, and as part of that I'm also moving to a V2 API version of the character sheet. So if we configure sheet, not yet, the old vehicle sheet, that's what it currently looks like in the released version. It's very simplistic. It's just, stick some stats in and not much else. We have a version 2 of the sheet. This is not released at the moment. This is in the develop branch within GitHub. I'm looking to put in a lot more support for customizations. I may take a bit of a walk away from that and just try and get things working to the same level they were before, rather than adding more stuff in. But we do need to support armor and things like that. We have a new damage dialog, and you can select, we have an armor there. You can see the armor is modified according to which facing the attack's coming from, and it's calculating whether it's a light weapon, i.e. it's not destructive or blast damage or anything like that. And we also need to handle the new way vehicles are damaged. So do we have anything here? So this one might be better. Actual damage 6. So we can see we do a bit of damage there. So damage in the vehicle update rules don't actually have hit points, though Foundry it doesn't force you to, but it assumes you do. Therefore you have these health bars and things. What you do have is number of times over your structural points, basically. So in the case of this vehicle, every 3 points of damage you amass criticals and critical hits. Once you've done 10 times that, the vehicle is out of commit, not quite working. 20 times it's totally kaput, 40 times I think it's utterly destroyed. So what I'm doing is giving vehicles hit points, but everything has 10 hit points. We go here, resources, so everything it will show up as 10 on the bar, and all that bar is tracking is how many multiples of the structure you've done. So it just gives a visual indication of what state the car is, or not car, vehicle is in. So it's a way of displaying that easily in Foundry, whilst also not using the old hull points like system. So there's work being done on that. I need to work on adding weapons to vehicles and being able to use those vehicles, use those weapons, etc. And I'll do some, continue to do some work on the design of vehicles as well. There will also be a new equipment type, which is options. Again, these are being done using the V2 API, so they look somewhat different. The new Foundry interface is a lot more dark theme, so it's sort of defaulting to a much blacker background. If we go and what do we want? We want items. So the item sheets used to be, well, all the sheets used to be a lot lighter in color, actually. So, which I sort of prefer, but the new Mongoose theme, at least for character sheets, tends to sort of be a lot blacker, a lot darker. So I might keep to the same for the V2 APIs, which means there'll be some differences between different types of sheets whilst I'm working on converting everything across. I think it's version 15, the old V1 APIs that get deprecated, so that's going to be about this time next year. Whether that means they stop working then, or whether they'll stop working the release after that, I'm not sure, but I do need to start looking into converting all the sheets into the new look and feel, which also means changing the back end and how they work. And to be honest, I've learned a lot since I started working on this, and the current actor sheet is a bit of a mess in the way it's designed at back end, so it might be good to redo it from the ground up, and this is a good excuse to do that. Now, one thing I noticed whilst going through the Vehicle Handbook is there's a lot of mention of robots, and a lot of how vehicles work is quite similar to how robots work. So keen-eyed amongst you might notice I have a GIS card here. If I open that up, here's a robot character sheet. It's not quite working yet. Again, it's got a design feature here, so you can go in and it will automatically calculate hits and things like that. If you look at equipment, we have equipment types, so we have a small gun and standard manipulators, and so that allows you to add arms. We go into here, we can see that, yeah, depending on what size manipulators you have, it will automatically calculate strength and dex and things and how many slots it uses up. There's a few bugs in this, but it's sort of starting to work, and I'm taking a look at this as an excuse to sort of not only move the sheets to API v2, but also try and improve the UX on them. So if we go back to items, I mean, we had a lot of, and we didn't really have tabs or anything like that. You had the sidebars, you had a long list of things which needed scrolling. So I'm now looking at making better use of tabs. So you've got a place for the effects, component and computers and things will also have their own tabs if they're enabled, and specialist fields for particular types of things will probably be on their own tab. There might be some common things up top, some important things up top, but a lot of the sort of design work can be hidden down in sort of within the tabs, which might make things a bit cleaner. And yeah, we've got different types of option types for robots. We used the same item type for vehicles, so I could switch this to vehicles and that'll have a different set of option types for there, and it'll be spaces used rather than slots used. So there's a lot of overlap. I could have used a hardware item type for spacecraft, but that's a bit too hard-coded for spacecraft and would require a lot of changes. So it's easy to come up with a new item type options and see how that goes. And as I said, there seems to be quite a bit of overlap between robots and vehicles. To be honest, I'm finding both the robot handbook and the vehicle handbook quite complicated in how the design of vehicles and robots work. There's a lot of exceptions and special cases, and it's also doesn't quite work how my brain works. Possibly I'd just done a lot more with spacecraft before I implemented spacecraft, so I found spacecraft a lot easier to handle. But yeah, maybe I just need to sit down and design lots of vehicles and lots of robots to really get a good feel as to how the whole system works. So yeah, so that's pretty much what I've been working on. This is all part of the development branch. Probably once things are good enough, I'll move them to mainline and push them out for release. However, that doesn't mean they'll be entirely stable at that point, but hopefully it'll be enough there for people to use vehicles and robots in the basic way, and at the very least just track their hit points and skills and stuff like that. Yeah, I do want to try and make the sheets a bit better this time round, and so whether I stick to this sort of dark theme, I don't know. I might try and lighten things up a bit because I am a fan of lighter interfaces, but we'll see where that goes. So I think that's about it for now. As I said, that doesn't feel like there's been a lot of progress. A lot of time has been spent trying to understand the rules and also trying to figure out the new APIs and get those working. So there's been a lot of just general churn of spending an evening seeing whether just getting tabs working properly, and so I can have dynamic tabs which change depending on what type of option type it is and things like that. So yeah, there's going to be a lot more like that, but I'll get out a release for this as I can. Recent releases have been mostly around version 14 support. Hopefully I fixed all the bugs there now, but if you find any, please let me know. If you have any comments on the new look of the character sheets, also feel free to comment. I'm not entirely convinced at the moment myself, but I'm trying to stick to the sort of blue and orange theme from Mongoose to try and differentiate between what are actors and what are items. But yeah, so work is progressing, not as quickly as I'd like, but there we go. So thank you for listening. If you have comments, leave them below, and until next time, thank you very much.